Welcome back to Class Winners Ranked. I'm Sam Baer, Class Winners Collector Vehicles Car Guy in Chief. Today we're going to answer the question, what is the best Japanese domestic market vehicle for getting the most attention at any car show, any cars and coffee in America? Now, there are a lot of Japanese domestic market vehicles that get a ton of attention. They're total attention seekers. But we've picked this question for a very specific reason. Not all extroverted JDM cars are really great to hop in and take on a long drive. And a lot of them can't even be registered anymore in a lot of states in the country. So what we've done is we've actually excluded some of the most attention-seeking vehicles, like the Honda Beat, the AutoZam AZ1, and all the other 660cc and 550cc K-Class vehicles. And we've put on a limit of 1 liter and over vehicles, because those are the most likely to be able to be registered in a lot of states which have mandated against the smaller displacement K vehicles. Also, those vehicles with 1 liter and above tend to be better long, comfortable cruisers at highway speeds. So you can get in them, hop on an interstate, and actually get to the event and do it comfortably and reliably and not have to ride in the right lane, or in the case of like an AZ1, be subjected to truly evil ergonomics. So let's get into it. Our 3 finalists for the Class Winners Ranked list of best attention-seeking JDM vehicles to take to any car event in the United States. Well, the first one is the 1989 Nissan Escargot. The second is another vehicle from Nissan's Pike factory, and that's the 1991 Nissan Figaro. And finally, we have an entry from Toyota that was made for more than just 1 year, and that is the 1991 to 1995 Toyota Sera. So here's how I introduced each of the vehicles when I drove them in their own Class Winners Seat of the Pants videos. You can't help but giggle. We are driving in one of the most hysterical vehicles ever made. This is a 1989 Nissan Escargot. They only made about 8,000 of these things from 1989 through 1990. And it was only available in Japan. The Escargot was designed to be a light commercial delivery vehicle, the type for mom and pop shops. It was offered basically with 2 main options: a porthole window in back and a convertible top up there. When it comes to quirky Japanese domestic market vehicles, well, it's really hard to beat this 1 year only 1991 Nissan Figaro. And after just over 20,000 produced in that single year, it was gone. And now it is one of the most sought after Japanese classics. So this car might have been designed to look and give the impression of a 1950s Fiat Auto Bianchi Bianchina. But from the driver's perspective, this is a purely modern 1990s touring car, and a really good one at that. It's so comfortable, and it's so smooth. And despite its cutesy appearance, the driving is just sublime. Welcome to the inside of the 1992 Toyota Sera. Unlike when you get into a DeLorean and then you shut those doors and then it's just like any other car, the Sera always reminds you that you're in a Sera. And the key to that is this glass canopy. Once you get past the doors and the glass canopy, yeah, it's a 1990s Toyota, but that's not a bad thing. All right, it's time to start ranking. Now, our first category is arguably the most important. Which vehicle simply gets the most attention at any given time? So in third place, it's the Toyota Sera. The Sera really has one attribute that makes people turn and look, and those are the dihedral butterfly doors. Now, I have thousands of miles in Toyota Seras, and I can tell you that once you close those doors, I don't want to say it's an anonymous car, but it's easy to get down a highway or in a city without people taking a second look. Now, once you open those doors, that's when the people come and run it. With the doors closed, only true car fans and people who understand cool design will take a second look, or if they see you're driving on the right-hand side of the car. Now, in second place is the Nissan S-Cargo. The first thing you notice about this S-Cargo is that it's just crazy styling. Nissan's innovative pipe factory wanted to create a vehicle that was reminiscent of the French Citroën 2CV, or Deux Chevaux. The Deux Chevaux's nickname was the snail. So naturally, when they were designing a light commercial delivery vehicle, they're like, hey, let's do a snail. Hence the S-Cargo was born. It's really hard to drive an S-Cargo anywhere without people turning and looking. Now, in first place, it has to be the Nissan Figaro.
Owning a Nissan Figaro or just borrowing it and driving it around, that everything takes you longer. You want to just pop in and grab some gas? No way. At least 2 or 3 people are going to come over and ask you what it is. You want to just make a quick fly into the Cars and Coffee? Yeah, forget about it. You'll be there for hours when wave after wave of hordes come over to ask you who designed it, where was it from, is it a new car, is it an old car, how did you import it, what's the color name called, how can I get one? Well, heck, even when I was filming this, I had to stop multiple times to explain what the car was, to get thumbs up, to get people telling me how much they loved it.
The next category is driver and passenger comfort. Or, hey, if you're going to be stuck in a vehicle for 100 or 200 miles, which is the one you'd most want to be stuck in? So in third place, it's the Nissan S-Cargo, and that's not going to come as any surprise. So what is it like inside the snail? That's actually not too bad. Legroom is not tremendous, but at 6'4", there's enough for me to be comfortable. The driver looks directly at this very Citroën-esque single-spoke steering wheel, a trademark for Citroën. There is a single very cool instrument pod here with a speedometer, gas gauge, temp gauge, and some dummy lights. And, well, you have heating and air conditioning. Yes, this actually has working AC and an AM/FM cassette player that came standard. Seats are, well, flat, but they're relatively comfortable, and they do adjust forward back, and the seat back goes back. Behind me can only be called a occasional use seat. Now, there aren't any seatbelts back there. We will put a tie between the Figaro and the Sera. You see, the Japanese were really way ahead in terms of ergonomics and just overall, quality in their compact and sporty cars in the 1980s and 1990s. Thanks to cars like the Prelude that used Recaro seats, it really made Toyota up its game. So now the most obvious downside of having so much glass is when it gets hot, when the sun is just right up there in the heat of the summer. Yeah, that's why they call it a greenhouse. But luckily the Sera took some of that into consideration. First of all, there's Japanese quality air conditioning. Second of all, there are these nifty sunshades that flip right in above the head. So that takes them down at least 15 degrees. Sure, if the sun's setting or you catch it the wrong direction, yeah, you'll get really hot sun coming, right in this section here through the window, but, that's not a lot to have to deal with for such a cool and unique design. Standard equipment in the Figaros was actually pretty amazing. You got leather interior, a retro stereo with CD, air conditioning, and then there was a whole host of other options and doodads you could equip your car with, either from the factory or from the dealers. You have this wonderful plastic steering wheel that recalls the old Bakelite ones from the 50s, and it just feels right in your hand. And as you're looking at these retro gauges and sitting in this beautiful leather interior, you'd expect you're in some kind of luxury car. It's really funny to think about the Figaro when comparing it to a Miata of the same year. This car is actually about 10 inches shorter and 300 pounds lighter than a Miata. And oh yeah, it's a 2+2. You're supposed to be able to fit 2 people back there. But in reality, nah, it's just luggage. So now it's time to rank just the pure spotlighted fun to drive. Which of the 3 is the most fun to drive? In third place, it's the Toyota Sera. It's not that the Sera isn't fun to drive, it's just that it feels like really any Japanese import. So the ones even we got during the 90s, this thing holds the road really well. Steering is almost to the darty point. You really just point and shoot. It's a solid platform. And as for acceleration, well, it is the standard 5E Toyota 1.5 liter dual overhead cam, 4 valve per cylinder, 4-cylinder engine. It produces about 108 horsepower. That doesn't seem like it's a lot. But as I've said many times before, and as indicated in the title of our videos, that it's not about numbers. It's about what you actually feel in the seat of your pants. And you're not going to win any bragging matches. But when you drop it down, this thing gets up and goes. In second place, it's the S-Car Go. Now, by all standards, the Sera is a better performing car, better handling car, and really should be more fun to drive. But there's an X factor about the S-Car Go in terms of when you look around, you know you're driving something totally different, and so you drive it differently. So at the end of the day, you just feel like you're getting a little more out of it. Now, powering this snail is the tried and true 1.5 liter overhead cam 4. In this form, it's carbureted, just a single carburetor. Now, much has been made about the S-Car being slow, and that's really not the case. This thing has 72 horsepower, and it only weighs 2,000 pounds. And I'm here to tell you that these people who are writing these stories obviously have not been testing out good examples, because this thing is very capable of reaching highway speeds. We're doing, right now, 60 kilometers per hour, so 36 miles an hour. Want to get on a freeway? There's 90. There's 62, almost 63 miles an hour. It's not too loud, not too buzzy. It's actually just fine for a vehicle that has the aerodynamic properties of a barn door turned sideways. For a tall car, it handles pretty well. We have touring tires on here. They're just 13 inches. And yes, with its center of gravity so high, it does lean into the corners. But it's not, well, VW Vanagon kind of handling. It's more kind of, hey, this is kind of fun. Let's see what we can do in it. In first place, it has to be the Figaro, because everything feels so great. Instantly, when you look at a car that is, well, about 10 inches shorter than a Miata and looks like this, your first instinct is to say, well, it's got to be slow. Then you hear it's got a 1 liter 4-cylinder. And then you say, well, it's really got to be slow. But guess what? It's a multi-valve overhead cam turbocharged 1 liter 4. And guess what? This thing gets up and goes. It feels faster than it is, but you can drive this all the way up to, well, about 100 miles an hour. And matching that power are really good brakes. You got discs up front, drums in the rear, and chassis dynamics that are just really amazing for what this car looks like. Independent front and rear suspension, power brakes matched to power steering, and it just works, and it's so smooth. Now it's time to rank quality, reliability, and ease of service. And in third place, it's the Nissan S-Car Go. Now, there are some parts that are available at your local auto parts store, but for the most part, all the trim pieces and a lot of the engine parts really have to be sourced from outside the country. It also is a carbureted engine, so it's going to be a lot more finicky than the fuel-injected units of the other two cars. Also, in terms of the availability of high-quality, well-kept examples, when it comes to the S-Car Go, You can go a year without seeing an example for sale that isn't rusty or damaged or totally worn out. And to that end, a lot of the poor reviews escargots have received over the years have been because reviewers drove really crappy examples of them. But if you can find a good one, they're actually pretty reliable if you simply take care of them, which is to say you keep them indoors because they will rust. Second place for reliability, quality, ease of service is the Nissan Figaro. Now, the Figaro is actually kind of a conundrum because in some senses, the Figaro is an extremely reliable and well-built vehicle. But on the other hand, like the escargot, it was low production, and so a lot of the specific to the Figaro parts, interior, top, bezels, were somewhat cheaply produced or produced with materials that don't wear particularly well. Also, because they're serious rusters and many of the owners didn't park them inside, all too many of them basically are rough as a cob. So you have to make sure that you're buying the best one you can find, or you run into these problems. Rust everywhere, bubbling rust, paint that's peeling, interiors that crack and rip and discolor, and switch gear that doesn't work particularly well, and tops that leak. But beyond that, for those that have been taken care of, they're actually really easy to work on. Not the greatest engine access, but honestly, I've had a bunch of them and I've never had a mechanical problem with one. So they're pretty robust. Now, in first place, it's the Toyota Sera. I mean, it has to be. It's a Toyota. Not only that, but it shares the engine with a Toyota Paseo and a lot of the platform components. So literally, most of the service parts that you're gonna need, they're at your corner auto parts store. And they're cheap, and they're available immediately. Plus, you have that Toyota reliability. Now, let's not get too far into the dreamland of the religion of Toyota reliability, because the Seras, like other cars of the era, are very prone to clear coat peeling, to rust, to things like the door lift supports going out, and a lot of the interior plastics will get brittle and break over time. But really, if there's one JDM vehicle that you can feel comfortable going across country in, it's got to be the Toyota Sera. All right, so it's time to do the final rankings. And in third place, the Nissan escargot. It's a great vehicle. It gets tons of attention. But by the rankings, it's actually the least capable of going long distances and doing it in comfort, even if it gets all the looks while doing it. In second place, it's the Toyota Sera. Don't get me wrong, I've owned a bunch of Toyota Seras. I love them. I absolutely love them. But I love their designs, I love the doors, I like the power, performance, reliability. But it doesn't get that much attention when you're driving or when you're parked. And that's the whole point of this ranking list, is which gets the most attention, but you have to get there to get the attention. So in that respect, the Sera is a great blend of suiting all the needs. But in first place, it's the Figaro, because it's such a blast to drive. And It doesn't matter what type of car person, or if you're not a car person at all, whether you're driving it or it passes you on the street or you see it parked at a show or in a parking lot, you're going to get drawn in by the overall look, the small details. It's just a great all-around look at me classic. And you'll enjoy driving it and you'll love owning it. You just have to be able to afford one now. So, do you agree or do you disagree? Put it down in the comments. I want to hear. And don't forget to subscribe and like. I'm Sam Bearer, car guy in chief here at Class Winners, reminding you that life's too short for ordinary cars. We'll see you next time.